Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning for the, we called it a Q&A initially, but yes, obviously we'll throw it open to questions, but they're focusing on the supplement for Facilitator report, and more specifically, how can that help us to interpret DiSC profiles? All right. Now, how this came about is because we, from time to time, have a client send us a profile or ring us and talk to us about a profile that they want some advice on how would we interpret this. And then we ask them to send us the supplement for Facilitator report. So all six of the examples I'm going to be sharing with you have come from clients of ours who have had that profile with one of their participants. And so they've asked for some input. And I just thought there's some really interesting things came out of that I wanted to share these examples with you, because since people come to us on a fairly regular basis and say, how do I interpret this? Why don't we share with those of you who are interested in finding out about some of these difficult things, and it might help you to interpret some of the things that you are getting. And the supplement for facilitators is the number one go-to for me when someone says, I don't agree with my profile. Okay, let's have a look at the supplement. Okay, so I'm going to start off by going through my supplement report. Okay, and then I'll get onto the examples and look at them, and we'll discuss what we can see there and how we could use that information to provide better interpretation for the participant. Okay, so my supplement for Facilitator report. So that's my profile, and that's the cover of the report. You can see I'm an SI style, and I have an additional action, priority and action. Okay, so and for those of you not familiar, roughly 1/3 of people get one additional priority. Okay, 3% you get 2 additional priorities, but that's the maximum you can have is 5. Okay, I know that there's some people who are using DiSC, facilitating sessions around DiSC that are not using the supplement for Facilitator report. Okay, and so part of the reason for doing this session also is to help you see how valuable this report is and why you should always use it. We never give someone a DiSC profile without giving them their supplement report as well. Doesn't matter whether it's a senior exec team or a leadership, a team of employees at the front line. Okay, we're going to give out the supplement. Okay, so here's the first section in the supplement report is the umbrella graph. As you can see in the description there, it says the umbrella shows Keith's scores on the 8 DiSC scales. All right, so this is the raw scores on the 8 DiSC scales. And this is the information that the program behind the profile uses to determine where my dot should go. Right? There's a whole series of algorithms that do some calculations to figure, based on what those raw scores are, where should the dot go. Okay, so you saw my dot, it's in the SI area. You can see that on the ISSI scale, I've scored right out to the edge of the circle, as I have on the S scale. I also have a spike on the DI scale, but the majority of the area of my umbrella is centered around the SI area, which is why my dot ends up there. So for most people, when you look at their umbrella graph, it makes sense why their dot is where it is. There may be some situations where it's not so clear, and we'll have some of those as our examples. The second section of the supplement report is the unexpected items. Okay, now these are items, and when I've been answering the question, there's 8 scales, right? And the number of items per scale range from 8 to 12. Which items have I responded to in a way that's not correlated with my style? I'm not expected to answer that way, all right? And the way the program works is it goes to the opposite side of where your dot is. So I'm an SI, so it's going to go to the DC scale first to see if I agreed with any items over there. And then there's room for 10 items. And so if there's not 10, which there wouldn't be because I'm not going to score that many DC items, It's going to look to the D scale and the C scale, the two scales either side of my opposite scale. And it's looking for anything that I agreed with or strongly agreed with, right? So agree is a 4, strongly agree is a 5, and it pops them into this report, okay? Now, if per chance I didn't have 10 that I agreed with from the opposite side of the map, it would then come back to the SIIS scale where my dot is and see if I disagreed with anything that I'm expected to agree with. All right. I don't know if I did or not because I've got 10 from the other side. But if you see any 2s or 1s behind the unexpected items in your report or a participant's report, that means that they're items that they disagreed with, but they're expected to agree with because that's close to where their dot is. Okay. So a 2 would be they disagreed and a 1 would be strongly disagreed. Okay. So how do we use these unexpected items? Well, one of the most valuable ways of using it is to go to your dot tells a story, which in the Epic generated profiles, as opposed to Catalyst. Catalyst, the pages numbers are different. But in the Epic generated profiles, the narrative or your dot tells a story is on page 4. Okay. And when we take people through their profile, we typically ask them to tick the things they agree with, put a cross on things they disagree with, a question mark on things they're not sure about, and then underline the things that they feel are most accurate about them. Okay, so the things that they disagree with is what I want to focus on here. So I've got this little cutout from my narrative report, and there's a couple of things here that I disagreed with. The first one was you probably dislike rapid, unpredictable change. I quite enjoy change, and in fact, I'm likely to be the person that's initiating the change. Okay. It also says you may be hesitant to move ahead with bold changes if you're unsure everyone's on board. And again, I put a cross on that. Okay. Now, why am I doing that? Because if we look at the unexpected items above, it gives me some suggestions as to why I might have disagreed with those things. So, for example, it really bothers me when people waste my time. Okay. I agreed with that statement. Okay. That's probably a D item, isn't it? From the opposite side of where my dot is. And so that would explain why I don't dislike unpredictable change, rapid unpredictable change. Okay. And also, I can be pretty forceful with my opinions. So I'm not likely to be hesitant to move ahead with bold changes if everybody's not on board. Okay. I'm going to be speaking up and saying what I really think. Okay. So there's just one other example I thought I might share with you. Another section of my report. You may have found yourself accepting you can get yourself into trouble by trusting people who don't deserve it. And the unexpected items I think relate to that is I tend to be more questioning than I used to be. And I'm not as easily impressed as I used to be. And I say as I used to be because it's my opinion that these unexpected items are actually learned behaviors. All right. And so I know that in my earlier years, and was a more typical S, I probably would have been hesitant to speak up more. Okay, not so now. Okay, then the third section in the supplement report is the priority subscales down the bottom. And here is a graph. And if you're not familiar with the makeup of the profiles, there are 78 base items, and then there's additional items that you may get asked based on adaptive testing. But then there's a separate set of questions that measure the priorities. So here are the 8 priorities for the workplace profile. And you can see how I scored those questions that measure the priorities. These questions do not contribute to where your dot falls. The umbrella questions, the base questions, do not contribute to your priority scores. They're completely separate set of questions. Okay. So when I answered those priority questions, I came up with 100% on collaboration and support, which you would expect because they're 2 that relate to where my dot is very strongly. And then I've also got 100% on action, which is not expected. And so that's why I get the striped shading. Okay. So you only get the striped shading if you score above 78% on a priority that's not one of the 3 that you are automatically given because of where your dot is. Okay, so I was given enthusiasm as one of my top priorities, and it's not as high as the other 3. Okay, so it's still given to me because the program automatically gives you 3 priorities. But this is more specific information now for me personally. Yeah, enthusiasm's moderately important, but it's not as important as the other things. Okay, so this is one main value of the supplement report. It's giving you really personalized information. First of all, if I go back to the unexpected items, this is information about how I'm different from other people, or maybe different from other people who have the same style as me. So you might get someone else with a dot in the same position, but they won't necessarily have the same unexpected items. And you can, in fact, have no unexpected items, okay? Which means that you answer the profile totally as expected based on your style. Okay? We'll see an example of that actually as we go through. Okay, so we've already done that. Okay, and this is the second page, the page to the right of the graphs I've just shown you in the supplement report. And this explains what I've sort of explained already, that you're assigned to one of the 8 DiSC scales. You're measuring on each of the 8 scales, but you're assigned one of 12 profiles. I'm not expecting you to read this. I'm just telling you this is where it is. It's in the supplement report on the right-hand side when you open it up. Okay, so let's go to the first example. Okay, here we have a manager of 6 people. And when team members shared their profiles with each other, her teammates were very surprised to see that she'd come out as a D. And after some discussion, they told her that they thought she was definitely an S style. So here's her umbrella graph, and here's her DiSC graph. Okay. She is quite comfortable with her D profile. When she read the narrative report, she thought that sounded like her. And she also agreed with the additional priority that she had on support. So she's feeling a little confused by the feedback from her teammates and has questions about whether she's a primary D or not. Okay. Now, you can see that the spike on the D scale is quite strong. It's actually stronger than any of the other scales, including the S scale. All right, but she has got a little bit of a bulb down there. So this is a situation where it's possible she may have been asked the tiebreaker questions. Tiebreaker questions occur when you score strong on each of 2 different styles, and they could in fact be quite opposite. And if that's the case, when you answer the tiebreaker questions, you're deciding which one is more you, D or S. Okay, we don't know that because I haven't actually spoken to this person, but I would suspect it's possible. Okay, and if she did get tiebreaker questions, she would have answered the D questions as being more like her than the S questions. Okay, so let's look at the unexpected items for this person. You'll see we've redacted their names so we can actually share this with you. All right, and because her dot is in the D quadrant, all right, the program can be looking to the S quadrant first and then SI and SC to see if this person agreed with any items opposite where her dot is. And you can expect, because she had a fairly strong score on the S scale, you can see that most of these unexpected items are from the S scale. Okay, and she agreed with these. So you can see why other people on her team might have thought that she was more S than D, but she's the person that knows herself best, we would hope, and she thinks she's a D style. She was quite comfortable with that. Okay, and then in her priority subscale graph, notice that results and challenge and action, which are the 3 priorities allocated to her by her dot, are all lower than support or stability. Okay, so she's obviously placing a lot of importance on the S style stuff and giving support and providing stability and so on. Okay, so if you didn't have the this supplementary report, right, if you weren't using it, and this person reads her report, she says, "Oh, I think that's me." She's going to have on page 5 in her profile an additional priority description under the other 3 that tells her that she has a high priority in support. But her profile and the reasons for her co-workers saying that they think she's more S, this can help her understand why they're seeing that. Okay, and I say she is putting a lot of emphasis on providing that support and stability. Hence, the reason they see her that way. Okay, all right. Let's go on to number 2. This person disagreed with her results after a 3-hour group debrief. The umbrella graph confirms that the correct style for her is DC. Let me bring that up. Okay, and so you can see It's sort of similar to the one we just saw, except the spike was on the D scale and the bulb down in the S area was bigger than this one. So this is quite clearly someone who's very strong on the DC scale, so it would make sense that a dot would be out there, but it's not going to be strongly inclined because she's got all that other stuff pulling it back towards the center. Okay, so the DC style is typically very task-oriented with not much focus on people. However, their unexpected items, we'll see in a minute, show that she has developed some people skills to provide some balance. I would emphasize the positives of that and make sure she values the strengths of her DC style as well. And one of the things the DC style stands out for is the focus on mastery and competence. Okay, and so here are her unexpected items. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff there that's focused on S and SI kind of behaviors. All right. And they will see here that she's got a 2 on I am critical. All right. So I am critical would be an item probably on the DC scale. I'm not sure, but it would be either DC or D, I'd say. And she has disagreed with that. Okay. So she only had room for one additional unexpected item because she's got 9 from the opposite side where the S, SI, and SC scales are. Okay. And then if we look at her priority subscales, this reinforces the DC style, doesn't it? Because she's got 100% on challenge, which is the DC scale priority. Okay. And she has a very strong score on action, but not up to 78%. So she doesn't get any stripe shading there. Okay. So again, helping her understand her own profile, and as the initial description said, she disagreed with her results as a DC style initially. All right, but now when she sees the umbrella graph and the priority graph, you can see that maybe there is something there. Okay, and because she's putting a lot of effort into using the S and SI behaviors, she's probably doing that to balance up some of the potential downsides of a DC style being so task-oriented and not so people-oriented. Okay. All right, let's go on to sample 3. Although comfortable with her style, the dot position and shape of her umbrella graph created some questions and she wanted clarification. This is one where I suspect that this person would certainly have got the tiebreaker questions between the DC scale and the IS scale. Okay, this is sort of a bow tie, isn't it? There's a bit of spike on the DI, but where the person actually has aspects of both DC and IS in their personality. Okay, very unusual, very small percentage of people you will see with results like that, but they do come up, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. And you can also see that she has an additional priority on collaboration and an additional priority on action. So this is an example of the 3% of people who get 5 priorities. Okay, so let's look at the unexpected items. And again, because the dot placement is on the DC scale, the program is going to look over to the IS scale initially, and then the I and the S scale to see if she's agreed with items over there. And there's only a couple, there's 3 5s, but and 6. No, this 3 5 7 4s. Okay, there's 10 items. Her unexpected item area is full, so there may be more, but it only picks out the top 10. Okay, so this is again, I would be encouraging this person to recognize that they've developed these people skills to do all these things, as well as having the strengths of that DC style. Okay, and again, looking at the priorities, you can see collaboration comes out 100%, and so does challenge. Now, how do you do that? Completely opposite priorities at 100%. So that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And you can see where the additional priority on action also came from, because it's above that 78%. It's actually hit the 80% line. Okay, so the beauty of this is it really helps people understand why they've got the result that they have. If you don't give them the supplement they don't have any of this information, and they can still be somewhat confused. Okay, let's look at sample number 4. Okay, this person reported that when he took the DiSC profile, he was not in a good headspace, and said regarding the SC style, with high priority and stability and toning, I feel this description does not quite align with my personality. Once he'd gone through the debrief and talked to his manager and colleagues about his SC style, he said it suited him more than he had initially thought, and his manager agreed. Okay, so again, we've got this spike on the DI scale, but there's a lot more of the umbrella down there in between the SC and the S scales. And so that's where his dot ended up, all right, because the algorithms that calculate where dot goes are taking into account all of the scales. Okay, and again, let's look at the unexpected items. And as you would expect, right, his dot is down on the SC scale or near the SC scale. Okay, so the unexpected items is looking straight up to the DI scale. Okay, and if you look here, I'm dynamic, I'm daring, I initiate a lot of big changes, I'm enterprising. The DI scale is the entrepreneurial scale. Okay, I'm fast-paced, I'm bold, tend to be the first person to try new things. So he's got a lot of DI items in his unexpected item because he's got that big spike, which means he agreed with a lot of items on that scale. Okay, and again, we can see there are 3 items that this person has disagreed with it, and has a 2. And of course, they're cautious, steady pace, careful, step-by-step pace, moving slowly and steadily, all sort of items that would relate to that SC scale. Okay, so he's obviously agreed with a lot of items on the SC scale as well. If I just go back to the map here on the right, well, actually, we need to go back to the umbrella graph. Okay, so he's got a stronger score on S slightly than the SC scale, but he's obviously agreed with a lot of items on both of those scales to have that score there. Okay, even though he has a couple that he's disagreed with. Okay, all right, and then we go to the subscales, and we can see that support is very strong, action slightly stronger, and it's because of that action graph being above 78% that he gets the stripe shading on action. Okay, remember the stripe shading does not come from the umbrella graph, it only comes from the priority subscale graph, and has to be 78% on a product priority that's not one of your allocated 3. Okay, so outside of your shaded zone. All right, so it's interesting that stability is higher than accuracy and collaboration, etc. Okay, but support is the strongest one of those down in that SC area. Okay, so again, helping this person understand their report better because they have got the supplementary data. Okay. Sample 5 is an interesting one. At first, he did not agree with his style. However, once it was explained to him, he was more comfortable with his C style. So this is an interesting one. If you look at the umbrella graph on the left there, you can see that he scored right out to the edge of the circle on the DC scale and on the SC scale. Okay, and he scored pretty strong on the C scale, but not as strong as the other 2. And he's also scored moderately strong on the D scale. Okay. The algorithms calculated that his dot was smack in the middle of the C quadrant, and he didn't like that initially. Okay, so we thought, let's have a look at the supplement. Obviously, we can see the graph, umbrella graph. But then, what was really interesting when we went to the unexpected items, there weren't any. Right, not a 1. Okay. Don't see that very often, I might add. I've probably only seen half a dozen, told out of the thousands that I've seen. Okay, but when you look at the look at the umbrella graph again. All right, he's agreed with a lot of items on the C scale to get a score of about maybe 65 to 70% on that scale out to the edge. All right, but more importantly, if he had disagreed with any items on the C scale, they would be in the unexpected items. If he had any 2s or 1s, and so that was the feedback we're able to give to the person that contacted us about this one was, notice that there are no C items with 2s or 1s in the unexpected items. There are none, which means that this person agreed with all of the C items, or maybe scored a 3 in the middle on some of them, but they've obviously had some 4s and 5s to get the score that they had on the C scale. And so when they went back to this person, that helped him be more comfortable with the C style. I suspect he maybe just didn't like the C behavior for some reason, or maybe had been told he's a perfectionist a few times and didn't like that. But okay, now what's interesting here also is he's scored really high on challenge and stability, but he's also been given accuracy, in allocated accuracy by the program, because his dot is in the C quadrant. Okay, but in actual fact, the priority for accuracy is not as important to him as at this time as are stability and challenge. And action, in fact, is even more important to him than accuracy. Okay, so remember that one, because it's very rare to see no unexpected items. But when someone says, I'm not a C, and yet you can show them that they actually agreed with all of the items on the C scale, it's like, oh, did I? Okay. All right, so sample 6. We don't have a background on this one. We have just been sent this profile because the dot is so close to the center, and that's why I wanted to share this one with you. Okay. Very rarely do we see dots so close to the center. All right. And then when you look at the umbrella graph, you can see that they've basically scored moderately on all of the scales except D. All right. And perhaps just a little bit stronger up in the DII and SI area, which sort of pulls that dot just into the I quadrant. Okay. And so this person also has 2 additional priorities, so another 5er, 3%. All right. But one of the things I'd like to share with you is what this person's profile says. Okay. So in the narrative report on page 4 in the workplace profile, it says, you may have noticed that your dot is just barely in the I region of the Everything DiSC workplace map. In fact, it's pretty close to all the DiSC styles. And so even though you have a slight inclination towards the I style, you may find it relatively easy to relate to the D, S, or C styles as well. But since your dot is in the I region, this is the style that probably comes most naturally to you. Now, the rest of the narrative report describes a typical I style. All right. So obviously in debriefing this, we would ask the person to personalize it, tick, cross, question mark, etc., and underline the things that are most like them. And then we would look at the crosses. Okay. And then we would go to the unexpected items. All right. And because the dot is in the I quadrant, and this person has a moderate to high score on the C scale as well, they agreed with a lot of the items on the C scale. As you can see, accuracy is a priority for me. I am analytical, I'm solitary, I like doing analytical work, I'm meticulous, I'm methodical, I want things to be exact, I'm just a bit of a perfectionist, okay, and so on, okay. So it'd be interesting, and I don't think we've heard back from the client about how the person responded to this, but it'd be interesting to hear their thoughts on how accurate that dot position is. Now, the other thing I might add here is that it's quite possible that this person, in responding to the assessment, used a lot of 2s, 3s, and 4s in responding to it, and so brought everything in towards the middle. If people don't use the 5 option, like strongly agree, or the 1 strongly disagree, then they don't score on the umbrella graph out towards the edge of the circle. Okay. And it could be, again, I've had one where this was the case, person was very close to the center, and in debriefing it with them, they were part of a workshop I was running, and they weren't sure that their profile was actually accurate. And it turned out they were quite a young person and just new in the workforce. And it turned out they weren't really all that self-aware. But after we went through the session, they understood more about each of the styles. we did ask them to do the profile again, and they came out with actually quite a clear, came out initially in S, and they came out quite clearly in the C quadrant the second time around, and they felt that that was really spot on. Okay, so that's another thing we might learn from that. And again, we look at the priorities here. Yes, very strong on results and accuracy because they're the additional priorities. They scored above 78%. But there's not a lot of difference in the importance of the priorities for the other priorities on the subscale graph. Okay, so so that's the 6 samples that I had for you, and I just want to discuss another situation with you, which I had recently, and then we're going to throw it open to questions. Okay. And before I do that, I'll discuss what the best practices are for dealing with someone who disagrees with their report. Okay, so this question came from one of our clients who had run a session, and they had one of their participants, and they had 30 people in the room, and one of the participants disagreed with their style and quite vehemently and were disruptive because they kept on going on about how this is not accurate, it's not me, and so on. Okay, how do you deal with that, especially when you've got a room full of people? Okay, and so I would typically ask them to give, ask people to personalize the report. Okay, and I think the most effective way I found of dealing with this is they've already done that and they've got crosses, a lot of crosses, they reckon. Okay, so I'd go out and give them a highlighter pen and ask them to highlight the things they disagree with, right? Not just put a cross on them, but highlight them, in highlight. And when you do that, you can actually see how much of the report they actually disagree with. I don't think I've ever done that with anyone who highlighted more than 20% of the report. Okay, so then I would say, so the rest of it's okay. Yeah, the rest of it's fine, but this is not me, right? So in other words, 80% of the report is accurate, but 20% you don't agree with. Well, and then I would say, we're going to be going through the supplement for Facilitator Report soon. And I think that will help you understand perhaps why you don't agree with some of these things. Would you mind just holding on to this until then? Okay. If it's really disruptive, maybe we could take a break and I'll take this person offline and have a conversation with them and then do the highlighting and all that kind of thing. Okay. So, all right. So best practices for dealing with people who don't agree with their DiSC style. Try the following. Number 1, review their supplement for Facilitator Report. I've given you 6 examples of situations where people didn't agree with their profile or didn't understand it or wanted more clarity about it. And the supplement actually gives them a lot more clarity. They can see why their dot is where it is. They can see that I've got all these unexpected items. So these are my strengths that other people of my style don't necessarily have. So I've developed additional talents and strengths to help me be more effective. And oftentimes that's because I'm developing those obviously from the opposite side of where my dot is, because that helps me be more complete as a person than just being stuck in one particular style. Okay, so the second thing I would do is revisit the cornerstone principles, and in particular, the first 2, right? All DiSC styles and priorities are equally valuable, and everyone is a blend of all 4 styles. Often I've had people who disagree with their profile because they don't like it. They came out as a C and they don't think C is a very good profile to have, or S is not a good profile to have. Sometimes people think that D is a bad profile to have. Depends on the culture of the organization sometimes, okay? And what behaviors are more valued in their company's culture, okay? And so that's an important one. All styles and priorities are equally valuable. The second one is your work style is also influenced by other factors such as life experiences, education, and maturity. In other words, there's more to you than your DiSC profile, okay? This is just one aspect of you, and we're measuring 2 aspects of personality, all right? And And that's it. There are other aspects of personality that are not being measured by DiSC. Okay, but if you want to measure those, you need to go to some more complicated psychometric assessment. Okay, so DiSC is very practical because it's based on interpersonal psychology. Third one, ask them to personalize the profile, especially the story, and that's where I'd give them the highlighter pen. Okay, remember, get them to highlight the things they disagree with so you can see just how much of the profile they disagree with. If they highlighted 50% of it, then I'd say, well, let's check it out with other people. You know, at one time I had a person highlight the things they disagreed with during a 2-day session. And I asked them to take their profiles home that night and to share them with a partner. And so this guy, he was a sales manager, and he was an ID profile, and it had a lot of things in his report about him leaving things unfinished or going off on tangents and stuff like that, which is something that people can do. Anyway, he highlighted all those things he disagreed with, and he took it home, showed it to his wife, and his wife looked through it. She started laughing. And he said, "What are you laughing at?" She said, "I see you highlighted the most accurate bits." And he thought they were the things that he disagreed with. But his wife corrected him. She said, "What about you're going to clean out the garage? When's that going to happen? You've been talking about it for weeks," and so on. Okay. So, yeah, just always, that's probably the next, ask a friend, colleague, or manager to read the DiSC profile and provide feedback about accuracy. Make sure you ask someone who's going to give you honest, accurate feedback and not just agree with you for the sake of not raising any tension. Okay. And then check what frame of mind they were in and the context in which they answered the questions. We've had people answer the questionnaire backwards. All right. They didn't look at the scale, as in strongly disagree to strongly agree, and they reversed it. So they rated 1s for things that they strongly agreed with and 5 for things they strongly disagreed with. And so this person came out as an SI, but in actual fact, they were a DC style. Okay. I don't know how someone would do that, but just check out if they're still disagreeing. And if you solve the disagreement before you get to these last points, then do that. But then the last one, of course, if they still disagree and other people agree with them, consider offering them the ability to retake the questionnaire. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got if you would like to contact us through support@integro.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.